Hello and welcome. This is the EJ Tech Show. I'm Soham. This is Sahil, and today we've got two very interesting devices with us.
Two very interesting devices indeed. We're going to be giving you our first impressions on the newly launched Vivo X50 smartphone. In addition to that, we also have the Samsung Galaxy Z Flip Gold Edition in the house, so we'll be checking that out as well. So very powerful packed episode. So I don't think we should waste any more time. Let's kick things off with the Vivo X50. It's part of the X50 series that were recently launched in China, and now they've finally come here to India. So there's the X50, that's what we have over here, and then there's the X50 Pro. So that means this version doesn't have that crazy gimbal camera stabilization feature that Vivo has been promoting heavily. Instead, you have to rely over here on OIS and EIS to get those shake-free video and images. But photography is the main highlight over here. On the back, you've got a quad camera setup, which includes a 48 megapixel primary sensor, 8 megapixel ultra-wide sensor, and then you've got a 5 megapixel macro sensor, and you've also got a 13 megapixel depth sensor. So pretty versatile setup. And obviously, we're going to do a full camera test for you in our review. As this is the first impression, we'll be focusing primarily on a few things and not everything. But I did click a few pictures with this, and I can say two things that stand out for me. One is the macro sensor, and the other is low light photography. In fact, the night mode on this thing is just insane. And in some instances, I would even go as far as saying that it is on the same level as some Google Pixel cameras.
Those are very big ones.
Those are very big. But I stand by my statement, they've actually upped the game over here. Vivo has done a great job, especially when it comes to low light photography. But Vivo's not only focusing on the rear cameras, also the front camera has a very high sensor, 32 megapixel sensor. And Vivo, I think, understands what their customers want, especially when you consider that a lot of people are young, they are millennials, and they do like to take a lot of selfies. So hence you've got this high resolution sensor over here. So yeah, that's 32 megapixel, and clicked a few selfies, a few portraits, and it does the job just fine for all your Instagram and social media platform needs. So you won't be too disappointed with that. Okay, so other than photography, it's also very capable when it comes to all your video needs. I know that's something that you've been checking out.
So it does shoot in 4K 30 FPS, which is good for a phone which is probably going to be a mid-range, upper mid-range device. For that, 4K 30 FPS is very, very good. It's also got optical image stabilization and EIS, so that means you're always going to get quite stable footage. You're not going to get a lot of shakes and jitters like you see from other mid-range competitors.
Okay, so enough about camera. Let's come over to the design. This is an interesting design. I really like it. So you've got this frosted glass finish over here. Apart from that, there's also something that Vivo calls a choker design, which basically means that they flattened the top part of the phone to make it like more fashionable, to make it more aesthetically pleasing to the eye. It's a French thing, I don't know. I mean, it seems to be trending right now, so they've gone for that.
We've even seen that on phones like the Oppo Find X2 Pro. Even that's got that.
So that flattened top surface is what they call the choker design. Apart from that, there is something very important missing from this phone as well. There is actually no headphone jack this time around. I might be wrong here, but I think this might be the first Vivo phone to do that.
I think it might be the first one we've got in India to do that.
In India.
Because all the Vivo phones we've reviewed to date, whether they're high-end flagships or whether they've been the lower tier budget offerings, they've all got headphone jacks, and we've always been very happy about that.
So not only flagships, but now also upper mid-range phones like this one, they're starting to skip out on the headphone jack.
Maybe this is the clarion call. Maybe this is the turning of the tide finally for
All
Vivo.
goes back to Apple. Thank you so much for that generous decision that you made. Also, I'm sure you've heard by now that also chargers will be a missing feature, something that rumors are that Apple and Samsung will be doing. But yeah, that's
for a whole nother
episode. Anyway, back to this. So yeah, you got your single speaker at the bottom, single firing speaker. You got a USB-C port as well. There's a dual SIM slot inside there as well. Apart from that, it's a nice design.
Honestly, I think it's a good trend away from what Vivo usually does. Is they usually go for slightly weird or quirky designs or very conventional designs. Vivo never really does something that just looks normal and average.
More importantly, as that's in your hand, tell me how light does that feel?
It's so light. Just for comparison,
I think that's under 175
It's lighter than the Z Flip.
It is, yeah, it is much lighter than the Z Flip. Also, very thin. I think this is less than 8mm in thickness as well.
Probably why they got rid of the headphone
Yeah,
jack.
that makes sense.
Yeah.
Why they got rid of it, to keep it that slim. Some people, I personally, including me, I prefer some heft to my phones. But then people who don't like that will definitely appreciate it.
True, because I'm guessing you're definitely going to slap on a cover on this, especially if that's glass on the back.
Yeah.
So you need a cover. The moment you add a cover, you get back to the slightly hefty territory. So I think you'll be fine with a cover.
Okay, also on the front, you can see that there is a punch hole design on the upper left side, which is fine, great. Like we've talked about this before, we prefer it on the upper left side, easier to watch.
Although there is a slight problem I have with that. It's not as in the corner as it
It's
should
not
be.
as in the, definitely
It's
not.
slightly in the middle. I don't
It's
know why.
slightly off left corner, if that makes sense. It's just not, I don't know, it's not proportionate. It doesn't feel proportionate. But okay, fine, whatever. Also, very slim bezels. Not as slim as what you're getting on the Pro variant. That's nearly bezel-less.
Yeah, because it's also got a slightly edged
That's
curved
also got
display.
a
I think.
curved edge one.
But this is flat.
This is a flat display, which I think is great, especially
Yep.
when you're gaming and watching content. I do not like curved edges for the most part. So this works for me. Of course, also because the bezels are so slim, that means more screen real estate. So when you're watching content on Netflix, Amazon Prime, it's all going to look great. Plus, you've got HDR10 Plus here, so that's also
good.
really good news. Talking about displays, Vivo's finally joined the high refresh rate bandwagon, so that's great.
Yep, a 90 Hz OLED panel on this one. Finally, Vivo has broken that barrier that they've not gone into the high refresh rate territory yet. Even with the iQOO, we were expecting it on the iQOO 3 because that was a completely gaming focused device, but they still didn't have a high refresh rate. This finally gets 90 Hz OLED panel, HDR10 Plus. That's very, very good in my book.
Yeah. And as far as I can see, I've been testing the display out for a little while, and so have you. Punchy colors, very vibrant, great brightness levels. So no complaints from me in that regard. Apart from that, let's just quickly come over to performance. And I'm going to make this very quick because we also have to cover the Z Flip. But right now, what I can say is that it gets a Snapdragon 730 processor, which is a little bit odd because the Chinese counterpart had the Snapdragon 765G, and this is what also the Pro variant has here in India, but you've only gone for the 730 variant over here. And it's a very respectable processor, but I'm guessing Vivo's done this to keep costs lower, because if they want this phone to sell, then I'm guessing they have to
Honestly,
have some sort of a price difference.
I'm just happy it's not another Vivo with another Snapdragon 712 processor.
Yeah.
Honestly, I'll just say that.
That's true. So yeah, 730 over here, and I've been gaming a little bit on this, not a lot, but yeah, by default you get the highest graphic settings, and it handles it pretty much fine. I still need to put it through its paces, but so far I was happy with it. Apart from that, you've got Android 10, FunTouch OS. I'm not going to talk about the FunTouch OS in detail over here, but I will say this: over the previous iterations that Vivo has given us of FunTouch OS, this is far more streamlined
Really?
and drastically improved.
I'm very glad to hear that, honestly.
But yeah, so as far as first early impression go, I am very pleased with what this phone is offering overall. It's a very balanced phone, but I think it's a very big game changer when it comes to camera, especially in this mid-range segment. And on that note, I think you have something very special that you've been holding on since we started the Vivo X50 discussion.
So
He
I'm gonna
hasn't
be
put it
dramatic.
down. He hasn't even let it go.
I'm going to be dramatic, and of
Yeah.
course, the flourish.
There you go.
The flip
Oh my
phone.
God.
I'm actually so glad it didn't just.
All the
go off.
geek juices in my body have just shivered and just quivered, and it's a lot of information, more
Talking.
information that you need to know. But yeah, I'm not going to lie to you, I love foldable phones. There's something so special about just flipping them open and then just
Again, it's just.
shutting it and putting it back in your pocket.
So I told you this before we went live on camera. I think this is, metaphorically, this is like a fidget spinner. Even if, let's say, you're not really doing anything with it, you don't need to open it, you don't need to check your messages, you're just going to keep doing this every 5 seconds or so. That's what I've been doing ever since I got my hands on it. And even though we've reviewed it before, this is a new color we've seen. We saw the purple color before, I think.
So I did the first impressions with the purple variant, then I did my review with the black color variant. And
Mirror
by the
black,
way,
yeah.
if you want to check those videos out, if you want to see that review, you can do so on the EditG app or even our YouTube channel as well. So yeah, we've reviewed all the colors that they have.
Yeah.
But an interesting thing about colors is that this variant was introduced when they did the global unveiling, but
We didn't get it in India,
but
yeah.
it's only recently arrived in India. And The fun thing about changing colors is basically what it does is gives a company the opportunity to reintroduce a phone and slap a new shade on that and basically sell thousands more. So it's a great marketing trick.
This is the same thing that Apple does with Product Red, etc. That's what Samsung's trying to do here. They're just trying to revive everyone's memory before they launch the new Z Flip 5G. So this is probably what they're trying to do. They're just trying to create a little bit of a buzz all over again in India.
So would you, if money was no object, right? If you had all the money in the world, because this isn't cheap, upwards of 1 lakh, would you be able to walk around with this phone with your head held high? Would you be happy doing that?
Absolutely, 100%.
Okay. It's a little flashy for my liking, but like you said...
you know what? I don't care. This is the best thing that has ever happened to mobile phones, foldable displays, and the fact that it's even more flashy. This makes it known that you have a foldable phone, because this is going to be the head turner.
It's definitely not discreet, that's for sure.
Yeah, I like that.
And if that's what you're going for, and honestly, yes, I do know a lot of people who would sell their kidney for this particular color, and that's fair because it will cost you a kidney to buy this phone.
Honestly, if you're spending upwards of 1 lakh rupees on a foldable phone in 2020, when foldable devices and foldable displays aren't at their peak yet, you're clearly not one for modesty. So why go for that in the color either?
But here's the thing about the pricing though. Even if you look at the iPhone 11 Pro or 11 Pro Max, the top end variants, those cost upwards of 1 lakh as well, right? But people still buy those phones as well, which means that Samsung basically has to convince people that this foldable form factor is more than a novelty. And once they do that, once they convince people that yes, you can use these phones as your daily drivers, then I think it will open a big path for Samsung. Yes, bring the price down will definitely make things easier, but right now they are pitching this as a premium device, which means it will cost a lot of money, which I think is okay. More importantly, I remember when we reviewed the Galaxy Fold, I really liked that phone, and I remember even saying in my review, I basically buy into the idea of what this phone represents. When it's closed, you can use it as a phone, and when you open it, you can watch your favorite content on Netflix or whatever in a larger tablet-like canvas. So you got a phone, then it becomes a tablet. Now, I can also understand that a lot of people might not appreciate that as well, because they want a smaller form factor. They basically want a regular phone, and that's where the Z Flip comes in.
Yep, totally. So the Z Flip will just take your normal standard smartphone screen. In fact, it's slightly taller, and then just turn it into a small square that you can tuck into any pocket, no matter how small it is. Especially if you're someone who likes wearing compression pants, I don't know.
Very skinny pants.
Exactly. Yeah. This will be your best friend in that case. Yeah. But honestly, I think more than the novelty, what you spoke about, Samsung having to convince users beyond the novelty, I think that'll come in its own time. Right now, I think it's about Samsung trying to showcase that they are the only one in this space that is worth buying. They did that to the Moto Razr immediately with the Z Flip, because everyone could just see it. On paper, the Z Flip was better. Maybe it wasn't as nostalgic as the Moto Razr, but this was the logical contender. And to think that a foldable smartphone has a logical competition means that this whole industry is progressing way quicker than we could have ever imagined. And honestly, the day is not far when we'll see foldable smartphones as proper alternatives for daily drivers that we use currently.
Okay, I think on that positive note, I think we should leave it there. There's a lot to talk about foldables, obviously, but this right here is the Samsung Z Flip in all its golden glory. And if you're interested in purchasing this, you can do so from the Samsung website. Me personally, it's too flashy for me, but for Soham, he loves it. He goes to Dubai frequently. He loves that place. So for him, it just goes really well. Although that being said, it goes very nicely with my gold ring as well. Yep. So who knows, maybe one day. But yeah, that's about it for this episode of the EJ Tech Show. If you have any comments or queries, do hit us up in the comment section. You can either download the Editorgy app, or you can watch us on YouTube, you can watch us on Twitter. We're all over the internet, basically. That is what I'm trying to say. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll be back very soon with all the latest gadget reviews and all the developments from the world of technology. Thank you so much.